Hello and welcome to the big picture. As the NDA government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi completes its 1 year in office, we at the big picture here have been looking at various areas and sectors and analyzing the performance of the government. Today we will look at the crucial area of economy. One of the key issues on which the BJP-led NDA cruised to power last year was on its promise to revive the economy and take it to the next level and end the uncertainties which prevailed. At the end of 1 year, many observers, economists and experts have been looking at the performance and have come out with mixed reactions. The key challenge before the government in the last year has been to revive growth and improve the job situation. It has also faced challenges on the governance front and also in passing key legislations to assist in the task of improving investments and growth. How has the government fared on all these parameters and what can we expect in the coming year and what have been the lacunae and failures? We will look at all this today with Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Member National Executive of the BJP, Professor Ravi Srivastava, an economist with the Center for the Study of Regional Development in JNU, Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy, Member National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, and Paranjoy Goa Thakurta, Senior Journalist and an Economic Analyst. Welcome to all of you. So, Mr. Agarwal, at the end of 1 year, one of the biggest promises which your government made when it came to power was on reviving the economic growth, ending the policy paralysis. You think you have been partially successful in both of them?
Yes, we think most of the surveys and other economic scenario or sentiment, if you see from the business sentiment and other thing, they will point out to this situation only. The first priority of our government was the fiscal consolidation and controlling of inflation. This was the main priority and basic requirement. So if you go in the current account deficit figures, if you go for the fiscal deficit figures or control of inflation, so there was the requirement which we have been able to achieve.
Controlling inflation, current account deficit, these are all, it said that you have been lucky on these two fronts.
No, it is not
because
like
of
that.
The price of petroleum.
Because if I quote some of the figures when our NDA government came to power, some of the figures there were quite not giving the clear picture. Earlier government had not provided for refund of IT to the tune of 70,000 crore. They had overstated the revenue collection by 15%. Tax collection for 15%. Then several social security schemes were not even provided in the budget. The actual budgetary deficit, which was 4.6, if you calculate them, it was much higher than 5.5. So bringing that to 4.1% is one of the major achievement. That is a fiscal consolidation, fiscal deficit has been controlled. Then current account deficit has been controlled, and bringing inflation in itself was a big challenge. And you cannot say just only petroleum prices, though they have helped in our controlling of inflation, but that was very important. And the most important part of the economic process which we should understand is revival of sentiment. Ultimately, it is the perception of the people, industry, and a perception of the economy on the global level that creates the thing.
That is one of the biggest achievements.
And, if you go by all the reports of IMF, World Bank.
Okay, no, we'll come back to all that. Revival of sentiments. Paranjoy, how do you look at this? There have been certain positives, certainly, as Mr. Agarwal points out, revival of sentiments. Inflation has been controlled to a great extent, and certainly there are a lot of or a few positives which we need to acknowledge.
Girish, I think this government has been incredibly lucky. Who could have imagined that the international price of crude oil would come down from about $115 a barrel in the month of June of 2014 to less than $50 a barrel in January? Now, this was a huge bonanza and largely responsible for the reduction in the inflation rate. You see, India is importing almost 80% of the country's total requirements of crude oil. Diesel is a product whose prices have a huge impact on transportation of a range of commodities and therefore on inflation as a whole. But the government actually can take no credit for it. If anything, you can even argue that the government should have passed on more than 1/3 of the benefit of the lower international prices of crude oil to the consumer. Having said that, your problems have begun. Because already internationally, the price of crude oil is going up. It's gone up above 60. It's ranging in somewhere in the region of 62, 64, 65. And there's every likelihood that it's not going to come down, but would in fact go up, which would mean that your inflationary pressures would again be there in the economy. So that's the first point.
We'll leave that aside. We'll wait.
Okay. Now, so far, it's all very fine to say revival of sentiments. Mr. Modi has spent 56 days in 18 countries, but the fact is no investments have come. There is a problem when a government makes promises which are unrealistic. It's like bringing black money back to India and giving 15 lakh rupees to each poor family in this country. The point is, you can say sentiments have changed, but there's no action on the ground. The FIIs, the foreign institutional investors, got spooked because of the manner in which minimum alternate tax was sought to be applied. Now, the point is, I am here saying that there are huge problems in the economy which have not been addressed despite this huge windfall gain that the government has got. And, here we can say, in terms of ideology, okay, it's a right-wing, pro-market, the big goal is to improve the ease of doing business and increase GDP growth. But what have you done? In the name of devolving more finances to the state by accepting the recommendation of the Finance Commission, the point is you've squeezed on social sector spending.
Absolutely.
You've squeezed on healthcare, on education, on Manrega, and today Mr. Modi from Mathura is saying he's for the poor. Why has he have to say it again and again that his government is for the poor?
We will come to that.
Because the poor have been hurt. And they're still getting hurt.
You want to react quickly before I go?
Very small, because I just want to tell, there was a big corruption and leakages in the whole social security system. The first and topmost priority was to control that. And Jan Dhan Yojana, the financial inclusion and that scheme is very important. There are around 14 schemes which are establishing that we are poor and one thing.
Okay.
And corruption at the policy level. One more point I want to. The corruption which was at the policy level, you cannot control administrative corruption on a lower level. But the corruption at the policy level has been able to be controlled.
Okay. Professor Srivastava, let us look at the macro situation. I want both of you to address this macro situation. What changes have taken place in the macro situation?
Actually, first of all, just compare the report of the economy in January-March 2014 to January-March 2015. You see, there was a slight turnaround which had begun in the last quarter of the last financial year itself. And if you read the report...
You're talking of January to March 2014.
Yes, exactly. And if you read that report, the CAD had already improved to 2.8%. Fiscal deficit was coming down. Inflationary pressures had begun to ease, just about begun to ease at that point of time. So you had a number, on a number of macroeconomic parameters which were doing horribly before that. Already there was some improvement, including the GDP figures, the quarter GDP figures. On top of that,
now the GDP figure looks very impressive.
Forget about the revision of the GDP, but on top of that, we have had an international situation which has been extremely favorable. Now, the government can take credit for what what was already happening in the economy before they came to power. They can take the credit for, but the fact of the matter is that there are still a large number of macroeconomic indicators which unfortunately have not responded.
Like
whatever, the savings rate, the investment rate, capital formation, exports have declined through the year. Imports, because after all, if the economy, jobs, okay, we don't have the picture on jobs so clearly, but the macroeconomic indicators on which we have a clear picture, except, of course, inflation, which had begun to decline. Headline inflation had gone down.
And the petroleum prices have helped.
Petroleum prices have helped. CAD was 2.8%. Now it is about 2.6%. There's hardly any movement as far as foreign direct investment is concerned. If you compare again the quarter then and the quarter now. So basically the worrisome thing is that investment is not picking up. Savings is not picking up. Capital formation is not picking up. Government's capital formation, in fact, as a percentage of GDP, its capital expenditure is stagnant and in fact has probably declined somewhat.
Yeah, actually,
and social sector expenditure
there has been cut in expenditure also.
So, and it shows a decline, and social sector expenditures have declined. And at a macroeconomic level, these are, we can talk about sentiments. It's true, a huge amount has been worked on at the perception level, at the communication level. Sentiments have moved. A lot of things have been done to, to ease the way the business can work. But at the same time, on the ground, it has still not translated into what we would like to see in terms of a recovery. Despite the international recovery, and the international recovery has moved on. That is also true. So one cannot, cannot discount the fact that we are now in 2015 globally in a different period than what we were in 2012, 13 or 13, 14.
Okay.
I just want to ask one thing, because if investment has to pick up, there should be a resource. If the government coffers, the first requirement for investment, if the private sector is not coming for investment, they have to create a sentiment. And the government investment requires resources. So first step is fiscal consolidation. I would ask him whether was the first fiscal consolidation required, and then only government investment.
Yeah, I think I broadly agree with all the Paranjay's and Professor Srivastava's. This government is lucky, one sense, because of the international oil prices. And I must say that this government is also lucky that we have a central bank in India. I think they have been doing a wonderful job despite all this transition.
Despite the huge amount of pressure
and despite the transition from one government to another government. Yes. I think if you look at any kind of monetary indicators, they seems to be doing better. You take the foreign exchange reserves, you take financial market stability, you take inflation, you take current account deficit.
But all those have decelerated.
Pardon?
Borrowings, non-food credit is still
there's a current, the credit offtake is still an issue.
It's still pretty
private sector is not coming out.
Let me come to that. This credit is still an issue, but largely that is not because of the central bank alone. Yeah, it is because of the banking sector per se. I mean, I think we did discuss that in some of the things. But when I come to the fiscal consolidation, he's right that there is a fiscal consolidation. But my view is that the nature of fiscal consolidation is not really conducive for growth. If you look at the fiscal consolidation, there is a squeeze on the fiscal deficit, but there is no squeeze on the revenue deficit. In fact, if you look at the previous year and current year, there is a rise in the revenue deficit target rather than bringing down. So what is happening is that there is a compression of the capital expenditure. So this fiscal consolidation is not expansionary at all.
So there is a compression of capital expenditure, and then Mr. Agarwal says that there is consolidation happening so that there will be more public investment.
No, it's not happening. There is no. Actually, if you look at the numbers, the revenue deficit and fiscal deficit, the difference is the capital expenditure. There is a rise in the revenue deficit target. There is a decline in the fiscal deficit target. What is happening is that there is a compression of capital expenditure as a ratio to GDP. That's a fact. That's already there.
Why do you think that's happening?
No,
is it at the policy level, or is it?
No. We have been arguing that the fiscal consolidation per se should be on the revenue deficit, leave alone whatever is the fiscal deficit, even at the cost of higher fiscal deficit. If it is happening because of the capital expenditure, I think that needs to be done at the moment. There is no way one can revive the economy at this stage other than increasing capital expenditure, even at the cost of higher fiscal deficit.
Okay. Just one short comment on this.
I'll come to Paranjay, let him finish.
So what I want to tell in this, keep this year, because we have not, FMS yesterday also told that now our fiscal consolidation or controlling deficit will not be the target. This year, now we will go for further expenditure, and we will not go below 4% of fiscal deficit. So that's expenditure is, we understand.
Yes, Paranjay.
The point is precisely the point that Mr. Bhanumurthy made. How are you curtailing your fiscal deficit? By squeezing capital expenditures, which means you're squeezing investments. If you squeeze investments, whether it be the public sector, you will not be able to bring private investments. Where will the jobs be created? That is essentially the problem. You have a bad agricultural situation.
Yes.
And on top of that, I want to add something here. There has been very, very poor political management of economic policy issues.
Why do you say that?
Why do you say? Look at the way the land acquisition bill was dealt with. You said, land acquisition bill, if you ease the way in which the government can acquire land for private enterprises or for public-private partnership, this will spur investment. But look at the way you did it. You had an ordinance, you changed the entire character of the law, you did away with social impact assessment, you did away with prior consent, knowing full well that you don't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. You haven't managed your allies in the NDA. You haven't managed some sections within the Sangh Parivar who owe allegiance to Nagpur. And now you have eventually had to refer that bill, after making 9 amendments to it, to a committee of parliament. Now, couldn't this process have been better managed? I also do believe even the GST. On these, there has been political consensus, but it's how you manage the situation where I believe that Mr. Jaitley has not done as well as many believe it. And many of his economic policies, honestly, are no different from Mr. Chidambaram's.
That is exactly the point. Mr. Agarwal, this is the last point which you made. That this is virtually, if you look at the economic policies of this government, it looks like UPA 3. This is the criticism of the government.
No. If that was the case, why would we have gone for change in the land acquisition bill? The land acquisition bill of 2013 was a manifesto just to catch vote. It was not practically implementable.
Catch votes.
And at the risk of such a risk of unpopularity, we went for a change in the amendment, which were basically required and recommended by the chief ministers and the secretaries of the respective departments. And then even on the cases of GST and other, ultimately there was a crony capitalism in which corporate sector were having a say in the policy decision making.
No, that is interesting that you are talking of crony capitalism, and actually your government is accused of crony capitalism, but you are also talking of crony capitalism.
I don't know why Mr. Agarwal I don't know why Mr. Agarwal is defensive here. You know, what is wrong with to have a policy that is reflecting something like continuity with a change?
Exactly.
No, there are many good policies which the new government has taken up.
There are many U-turns which the government has taken, which is for the good
actually. The credit that the government needs to be given is that we did have many legislative passed in a matter of 1 year. And if you look at the parliament efficiency, I am told this is one of the highest efficient parliament sitting
in the last 20 years.
Yeah, probably. So I think we need to give the credit there.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of legislations, I'm sure Paranjay also remembers, the insurance bill, pension bill has been pending for 5-6 years and this has been passed.
I think e-auctions of coal.
It's agreed.
It was pending because of the opposition of the same party which is now piloting it.
Irrespective of anything.
Irrespective
of anything, we know that the bills are very important.
It allowed the insurance bill to pass. So it allowed the so you can't say that the legislation
ultimately
that passed,
management of the parliament has been
that's
better.
Where the credit need to be given.
To both sides.
No, Professor Srivastava,
to both sides.
See, some of the positives have been, as Paranjay also just pointed out, the coal, the spectrum auctions. There was this atmosphere of policy paralysis. You think that atmosphere has disappeared now? Is that atmosphere a better atmosphere now?
No. We have a government which is taking a number of decisions, which is implementing a number of decisions, but at the same time, many of these decisions are a fallback on something else. When you talk about coal auctions and mining and so on and so forth, it was already the Supreme Court had already charted the way. A number of decisions that have been taken, GST is an example, you're talking about the insurance bill, the GST, a number of the schemes that have gone, virtually every major scheme is a repackaging of earlier schemes. Which of these schemes is a brand new scheme? Can Mr. Gopal point out that this scheme is actually a brand new scheme? In this area, in urban development,
One second,
in agriculture, which of these?
Let him finish.
Okay, you finish.
Any brand new schemes?
The coal block allocation, the complete auction process has been implemented. Earlier that was
implemented because the Supreme Court said you have to implement in that fashion.
Insurance and pension schemes are a game changer because unorganized sector, ultimately what is our goal?
This is Swavlamban, repackaged, number one.
If you want to discuss on the scheme, the Swavlamban had many failures.
This scheme will have even more failures.
There was no pension
and also the old age pension scheme on which there had been a task force, a lot of considered decision. The point is that actually the government has pulled out of social security for the poor. The fact that it is actually pulled out.
Insurance
you are putting everything on the market. and a very bad market. The pension scheme is a bad scheme. It has a very bad inbuilt rate of return into it. It's not a good scheme. Where in India do you have a group life insurance scheme where you say that the premium will only be fixed for the first 3 years? Where you give the option of the premium being... First you get the poor, lock in the poor in a life insurance scheme, and then you say that the premium might actually be raised after 3 years.
That will be the market forces.
Can you point, you're a chartered accountant, can you please tell me another life insurance scheme where pensions can be raised at any point of time by the insurance companies after they've been fixed?
Premium. I just want to answer him.
I think, let Poranjoy, Poranjoy also has a point.
These are not good
You can answer both of them. Yes, Poranjoy.
See, there are 2 or 3 things. This government, like the previous government, has been obsessed with meeting targets. It can talk about good governance, but it's not happened. Take the Jan Dhan
meeting
Yojana.
Targets is not a bad thing.
No. 1 minute. Content and operationalization and good governance is even more important. I'll give you an example. You have renamed the Jan Dhan Yojana scheme. Fine. From the 15th of August, for 100 days, you opened 12.5 crore new accounts. By the end of January, 75% of these accounts had zero balance, right? As of now, you have opened 15 crore new accounts, but more than half of those accounts still have zero balance. Now, nobody can ever have any disagreement that every family in India, and there are something like 40% of the families in India, not a single member has a bank account. Yes, you should have a bank account.
Absolutely.
But wait, that's only the first step towards financial inclusion. The same story, Swachh Bharat. Who can have a disagreement with Swachh Bharat? But it's not enough to build toilets. Those toilets must be functional. The people must be wanting to use those toilets. They must be clean. Look, so the point I'm trying to make here, this government, like other governments in the past, has been obsessed with peaking targets. The point that Mr. Ravi Agarwal made, you see what you've done by implementing... Mr. Ravi Srivastava, I stand... Mr. Agarwal is from the BJP, Mr. Srivastava is from Jawaharlal Nehru University. I stand corrected. The point he made, you have increased the amount you are now giving as a share of the central taxes to the state governments. But the transition period hasn't been properly done. The states of the Northeast are very unhappy. Mrs. Maneka Gandhi has written to Arun Jaitley saying you have slashed my ministry's budget, women and child development by half.
Poranjoy, I got your point. Yes, you want. I want to bring in.
I just want to answer him that those two ultimately Jan Dhan Yojana, what it was for. It was creating an infrastructure for subsidy and transfers. Ultimately, 15 crore accounts have been opened in such a short time, and it has created an infrastructure where 85%, I agree, 75% have no bank balances. Therefore, these insurance schemes have been inbuilt to create an operational account. And you see, even this gas subsidy.
You expect people to put their premium in the bank account.
The last government, in its last 3 months, had put this benefit transfer scheme as one of its pivotal schemes.
No, but and it was
the same thing, the same idea. That everybody has a bank account, but we don't need to identify the poor. That problem, how it goes away. You don't need to worry about who gets scholarships. The banks will sort out their problem, whether children go to school or not, whether they pass or not. You know, this whole notion.
Answer first, then
yeah, please.
Because in earlier period, in 10 years, there were only 2 to 3 crore account. In 1 year, if we are able to open 15 crore account and we have given a scheme for operational...
This is exactly what Poranjoy was talking about.
You should see...
obsessed with targets.
No. You also see that gas subsidy. Earlier, there were 17 crore people who were taking subsidies. With this
account... Mr. Jairam Ramesh should be very pleased with this.
Let me finish, sir. I did not object to it.
This is what the last government, in its last legs, was putting all its eggs in this basket of benefit transfer.
Let me finish one.
Okay.
Now quickly, the subsidy is being given to only 12.5 crore. There was a leakage of 4.45 crore people who were not operational.
Yes. All that is perfect, but we don't know whether it has worked.
No, ultimately, you are saving 4.5 crore people subsidy.
We don't know.
But you can save all the money by not giving anybody anything.
Bhanumurthy, one of the bigger things which in this last 1 year has been the 14th Finance Commissioner increase in devolution to the states and things like that, and that's one of the big ticket achievements as far as this government is concerned, because the finance minister is talking about it, the prime minister is talking about it. So where do you think that achievement can be looked at?
No, well, I think the achievement is the finance commission's achievement. I don't think it is the government's achievement. This is an independent commission. I think the report has come out, and it is in favor of the cooperative federalism.
Increasing the devolution to
Yeah.
the state from 32% to 42%.
Yeah, I think that is welcomed by everybody, saying that, if you, provide more necessary resources to the states and let them plan their way they would like to spend on the kind of needs that they have within the state and all those things. But, I think I also written somewhere, my apprehension, I think, which is not part of the terms of reference of the Finance Commission, is the capacity, absorptive capacity of the state governments. I think the Finance Commission said that is not their part of the terms of reference.
No, it's not their part. And also, you can't really blame the center if the states can't absorb those.
No, that's what the point. If this is the case, while many of the big states are still running budget surpluses for the past 4 or 5 years, by providing more resources to the states, what is going to happen? I think we are actually completed one full circle. We had this kind of situation in 1952, and if you look at the economic survey, there is a statement by Jawaharlal Nehru about cooperative federalism, and there is a statement by Narendra Modi. So I think we have come a full circle. My fear is that at the end of 1 or 2 decades, we might get back to kind of a situation where there is a large regional inequality that's going to happen in terms of growth or employment or whatever economic indicator that we are going to see.
Mr. Agarwal, challenges. We have. What are the challenges? Because from what we are seeing, for instance, there is a huge slump in demand. So the manufacturing has got affected and things like that. And so what is it that you see as challenges in the coming year?
Challenges that we want to flag off is, one is the Parliament passing of some important bill like GST and land acquisition, and the support from the opposition. Second important challenge is picking up of the demand from the public so that private investment starts picking up. We are doing ease of business, that
you're talking of picking up
investment and attracting FDI and increasing the government expenditure also, generating resources for increasing the government.
You spoke of demand, Professor Srivastava. One of the reasons which we are told, because there's a slump in demand, has been the way the
and therefore like private sector is not coming up.
NREGA not getting adequate resources as it should have got, which has affected. Do you think that has been one of the reasons why the demand has been affected?
Demand, let me say, there's domestic demand and there's external demand.
Yes.
We know that external demand is still not going to provide the kind of trigger that it did to the economy in 2002, 3, 4, when the economy really took off, accelerated. As far as the domestic demand is concerned, inequalities in the Indian economy are frighteningly large, and they have grown over the last 10 to 15 years. Part of the reason of inequality is the very low quality of employment that has been generated, even by the organized sector.
Right.
By the kings of the organized sector.
Right.
So we have to worry about not only generation of employment, we have to worry about generation of quality employment, and we have to worry about inequalities, regional inequalities, but also intergroup inequalities, interpersonal inequalities.
Absolutely.
On job creation,
I don't see any policies which have even flagged concerns about inequalities in the quality of employment.
Right. Okay, Paranjoy, quickly.
You have here a government which is more right-wing than the previous government, which was also very right-wing in its own way, though it had a balance with some left-wing attempts, in terms of social welfare schemes. This government is clearly all out to not just improve the ease of business, to go in for helping the big capitalists. In the process, Mr. Modi was contemptuous of the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme in the floor of Parliament.
That shows in the kind of
he's slowly squeezing it. You want to kill it slowly. It's one thing to say, I don't like Niti Aayog. It's a remnant of Jawaharlal Nehru's socialist past. So we don't want the planning commission, we'll now call it Niti Aayog. That's one thing. But then to slowly, completely squeeze and kill off this scheme, and what you're doing to welfare schemes, essentially, healthcare and education.
I would definitely vote.
I think the government may end up paying a very stiff political price if it continues along this path.
Very quickly, last words. Coming year, what are the challenges?
Well, I think to be fair to this new government, the kind of legislation that has been passed and many kind of decisions that have been taken, it will reflect on the economic indicators in a later stage. I think some of them has to reflect. But as many people have pointed out, there is some kind of concern in the way the allocations to the social sector is declining over a period of time.
Okay.
I think that is very, very important to be plugged in. Otherwise, now that there is an agrarian, particularly when there is an agrarian crisis because of the bad monsoon, it's very important for the government to pump in the NREGA funds so that, that agrarian crisis will not be coming
further intensified.
Unemployment, very short. Because by Make in India, we would like to create the manufacturing sector's contribution. And Mudra Bank is there and reduce the dependence of agriculture sector, employment people from the agriculture
sector. That wouldn't happen in the next 5 years, certainly. But the path which this government is taking is pretty clear from this discussion. We'll wait and watch whether that path is the path which this country needs. But it has been a mixed year as far as economy is concerned, as far as this government is concerned. We'll wait and watch how it will perform in the coming year. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, the big picture, same time tomorrow.